looking at test scores, I mean, everybody recognizes the argument I made that there's a lot of reasons that test scores go up under teachers. So that it's an obvious caution. But if some scientist tells you that's okay, you can do something about it. So you've got Sanderson, and you've got other researchers. I mean, I got together a group of researchers in the 80s, and we testified before the Florida legislature that they could not do merit pay for teachers because of the regression analysis problem, because they couldn't separate out the effects of other variables, and therefore say how much was due. And they didn't do the merit pay. But, you know, I put together a coalition of researchers who were willing to say that at that time. You've got a lot of researchers who think that this is still science. There isn't anybody who would be in this room with me who could challenge what I said. That if I ran it a different way, you'd reward different teachers. And you got no basis for running it one way versus the other. So this is illegitimate. I've got absolutely no basis for deciding what portion of the 5 points that teacher test scores go up is due to that teacher. Run it one way, it's 4 points. Run it another way, it's 3 points. Run it another way, it's 0 points. And all of those ways of running it are valid and reliable. So, you know, you got somebody selling these school districts a bill of goods that gives them legitimate. I mean, they're willing to buy the test score argument that, you know, we need test scores, and they know the arguments I made against test scores. And the one scientific piece I'm standing on is one that I would just say, not enough people are saying that. And I've got people who tell me that I can do it. And people are actually spending a lot of money, making a lot of money, telling them how to do it. So, you know, it took, in the 1860s, it took 30 years to play itself out. In the 1960s, it didn't. In the 1960s, it was a fad, and it went away. Nowadays, all the school districts are starting to talk about it.
And bias in a portfolio, looking at doing it. I think that might be the concern, aside from the cost, the tremendous cost that would come out of that. Thinking about, yes, at a faculty level, at a higher ed level, it's are judged by your peers, but I think there would be some concern for bias based on different communities or different schools across the school district, having that cross-review portfolios of students and teachers would seem to be a big concern for parents and teachers.
Yeah, you know, that's certainly an important point. And, you know, I guess I have a couple of things to say in response. The first is no matter what system you use, there are biases. And if you use some sort of statistical program to parse out test scores, you're getting the biases of the person who ran that program and which particular variables they put in. And you've got, you know, something that's not transparent. You have no way, it was like those poor research staff at the Florida school districts. They just couldn't explain it. There's no way to explain why you got teacher of the year. You only had, you had a 5-point game, but it only looks like 1 point after we ran our progression. So there's biases there that aren't even discovered in that system. And any other system of rating will be biased. And what you try to do is you try to mitigate against those biases. You try to, you know, have some standards in terms of what are the criteria. You have, you know, some training that helps you, implement those criteria. But, you know, I mean, the bottom line, some might say, is inter-rater reliability. Will different raters come to the same judgment? And I think you can do that to some extent with training. But, you know, I don't think that's necessarily the answer. I mean, I can rate, you know, two people can rate my teaching very different. You know, my portfolio very different on what I've done. And both of them are valid. They don't necessarily have to agree that I'm a, you know, level 5 teacher, or level 10 teacher, or level 1 teacher, because they see it differently. They see what I've done differently. They see, you know, and have different views of the teaching process. So you can't get rid of inter-rater differences completely. You can talk some of them out. But what you want is you want a legitimate system for evaluation. And for that to be legitimate, you know, among professionals, it has to be a professional evaluation system. So this idea of, I think some of these are, you know, trying to have teacher committees, rate, because there are judgment calls on, you know, on a lot of these systems that, you know, they're not cut and dry. You score such and such on a test. So there's still judgment calls now under most teacher incentive plans that are multi-dimensional that require some judgment by raters. So I don't think there's an easy out.
Yeah, there isn't.
To that point, we just finished the MS Underground State Assessment in the school I teach, and I've been trying to get a handle on how these grades are determined for the last 5 years. And come to find out that the students are writing these essays, which are in essence a type of mini portfolio.
Sure.
That are going to be read by 3 individuals, 2 of which aren't math experts. And then they're going to compare their scores, and that's how they're going to deduce this number and quantify it. When, you know, 3 points is 100%, 2 out of 3 is now 67%, so you go from an A to a D in how the numbers work, you know, so quickly. And 2 of the people reading it aren't even math experts. It's so much subjectivity, even though it's this, you know, quantitative test.
You know, it's some of those things you just don't want to look because they're ugly. When you start looking at how those estimates are made. I remember talking about MISPAP, the previous test that we had in our and just how they decided what was a valid cutoff. You know, you just, lots of subjectivity enters into regardless. Anybody else?
Well, seems like we're all just waiting now to go think this through a little bit more and hit you up with all these email questions. So anyway,
My pleasure.
let's thank Steve for coming over and it's customary that one of our students gives you the official thank you.
We wanted to say thank you for coming tonight and sharing your perspectives with us and what you came across in the literature. And we're thinking you'll come over to the poster.
Somebody pointed out that I was in my Hawaiian shirt for this.
Thank you very much for coming.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
It's been very good, insightful, and I'm sure we're going to discuss it next week. So if you hear your ears burning, or hear your ears burning next week when we have class, you know your presentation is part of the discussion. So, but it was good. Thank you very much.
It was interesting to do.